I'm focused on his spirit cause it keeps me from his fire. The Holy Ghost was with me, so my fear I leave behind. My sins were all diminished when he took that breath and died. And if you think I'ma give up on my God, the devil is a lie.
Hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and we're going to be talking about some news from the Daily Wire. They are reporting that the person who tried to kill Justice Brett Kavanaugh, this was after like the Roe v. Wade stuff was leaked, the opinion, like they'll be overturning it. There was someone who was planning to kill him. He was stopped. And so I suppose he's going by she, hers now, and has changed her name and would like the state to respect his right to be called a female and stuff. But I guess Pam Bondi's not really putting up with that. But yeah, another person who identifies as trans who tried to kill someone. And I want to talk about that story today. And I'll also touch more on the Jimmy Kimmel stuff, the outrage from Obama and a bunch of other folks have just been insane about this. And we talked about it yesterday, but it looks like more people are looking at this Hollywood Reporter story now and realizing that this really was a financial decision. But people aren't going to accept that if they don't want to accept that. But we'll talk about it again. We will talk about it again and some other things as well. But I'm not surprised that we keep seeing this trans violence stuff. And you could say, well, that's a very small number. And there's been so many white male mass shooters, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Well, this is still a white male who did this. But so there's that. But it's not that if you have gender dysphoria that you are just more prone to be violent, but if you are unwell and more prone to be violent, you are probably just more susceptible to accepting this transgender ideology. So that's the thing, that's the issue. And it just shows the demoralization of our society, of our nation. But before we jump into all that, I want to encourage you guys to go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website, different articles, videos, etc. I'm about to drop an article. I was working on it early this morning. I haven't been getting like great sleep. Lately, I guess really maybe since this Charlie Kirk stuff has happened. But I woke up very early and I started writing an article. And then when I got kind of too tired to finish it, I fell back asleep. And then when I woke back up, it was kind of in the afternoon. And then I just started writing it again. But it's about Obama and his response to this, because he like retweeted David French's article about it and saying, oh, well, Republicans, they were against cancel culture and now they're engaging in this. And the article is just like, Obama needs to shut all the way up. And I say that in the article. He has been someone who has used the Espionage Act more than his predecessors, which that's something that the AP said, which by the way was caught up in one of his, spy tactics against journalists. He spied on a Fox News reporter, tapped a bunch of phone lines. They had collected a bunch of data from like private citizens' phone lines. You guys recall that? That was a big scandal in the Obama administration. So, and these people, they don't care about free speech when it comes to the baker who doesn't want to bake the gay cake, or the website builder. How many people were mad about the 303 creative case? People were infuriated about that. But Obama, he went after nuns. He went after the Little Sisters of the Poor for not wanting to provide birth control that violates their faith. And not only did they not want to provide birth control, they didn't even want to sign a waiver that would then allow them to get birth control elsewhere, because they're like, oh, we're still helping you do something that we see as a violation to our faith. I'm like, that makes sense. But Obama administration went after them. Other Democrats continued to go after them too. like the person who ended up being Biden's health secretary, Bashara, not Becerra. But he went after the Little Sisters of the Poor. Josh Shapiro went after the Little Sisters of the Poor. So Hobby Lobby had to go all the way to the Supreme Court for their right to not provide abortifacient drugs with Obamacare. Obama, he doesn't care about government overreach. This is a man who said you had to get health insurance or we were going to fine you. So that's basically just a fine for existing, guys. And he lied about if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. They all for government control. So he's a scumbag, always been a scumbag. I never liked Obama, and he's just worse. I have no patience for these people right now, and the sort of lies that they spew. If they want to have unity, that's great, but I don't want to accept any sort of form of unity without some kind of acknowledgement of the role that they played in a lot of the stuff. And Obama, he talked about, division and all this stuff the other day, and he needs to look in the mirror. He's one of the most divisive figures that we've had, and things just got way worse after him. And he would openly like go and blame the right for different stuff. So I can't stand him. And I lay out a bunch of stuff, including Roseanne claiming that, he got her fired, which we talked about that yesterday too. I think we did. Things are starting to blur together, I guess. But that article is coming out. So make sure that you guys, are looking at the socials. Thank you to those of you who are watching me live. Some of you I see don't usually maybe catch me live. I know I've had new people kind of pop in, especially on Facebook. My Facebook is getting way more traction than usual. So I thank people who are discovering me and watching me, giving me a shot, and people who watch back later. But make sure that you are, if you're watching on Facebook, that you are following the page. If you're on YouTube, make sure that you subscribe and you hit the notification bell. I'm also on, all my links are in the description. If on the video, if you're watching on Facebook, if you're watching on YouTube, there will be links to my TikTok pages. There's links to my Facebook. There's links to my Twitter pages, and you guys can follow me on all the socials. But also go to the website, drop your email for the newsletter. I do not send a lot of emails. Actually, I've not sent one in a while. I have to send one soon, I guess. But you're not going to get a ton of emails from me. But go ahead and do the email stuff. I don't post a lot on Instagram. I need to post more on Instagram. I know sometimes people have tried to reach out to me through Instagram. I'm only like one person managing like all my stuff. Just FYI, I don't have a team. Someone actually reached out the other day. It was pretty sweet. That they wanted to, I guess they assumed I was like a conglomerate or company and wanted to, I don't know, donate time and other stuff. I'm just like, I'm just one person handling my socials on my camera. I want more for Black Tea. I want it to continue growing and all that other stuff. But just if you send something and I don't get back, just like be patient and mindful that I have like so many things going on top of trying to do Black Tea. So I thank you guys for your support and your patience. Someone said, "Are you on X?" Because I really don't like Facebook. I am on X. I'm not verified on X right now because the last time I tried to buy my verification badge, they took my $8 but didn't give me my badge. So I'm like, how many times am I going to lose $8? And they never got back with me. So I have videos. I don't really post a lot of videos on X because they have to be like under 2 minutes and 20 seconds. And a lot of times I'm clocking more than that. I try to keep videos, especially so I can share them on Reels, under 3 minutes, but a lot of times they might be longer. But just FYI. But I am on X. My I like mostly stream and use X all the time for every day. So but I do tweet and retweet a lot of things on X. So I am active on X. I just don't post a ton of videos on it. My is at True Black Tea. Again, that link is in the description. If you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, there's a bunch of links where you should be able to look at my stuff. Also, if you go to blacktnews.com, you'll find a way to contact me all those ways too. So if you're new, or if you're like, hey, I haven't seen you in a while, I do stream every day. I mean, not every day, but Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern time. There could be a time or two when I'm having a technical issue, when I might be late or something. I do update if I'm going to be late, or if I'm going to be sick or something, or if I'm going to be on vacation. I do like post it on Facebook and YouTube in the like the post section, to just let people know what's going on. So I know that YouTube doesn't send out the notifications like they ought to. There's people who pop in all the time who say, hey, I haven't seen you post stuff. I'm posting it. They're not showing you. They're not showing my content to people. And Facebook was that way too. I'm sure a lot of people still maybe aren't aware that I'm live. There's just a lot that I'm posting right now with the Charlie Kirk stuff that people are very passionate about. And that's why I think I'm getting kind of more eyeballs on Facebook. But anyway, I thank you guys for being here, and please be on the lookout for that article I'm going to drop. I'm going to try to finish it up and have it posted before I go to church tonight. So I don't have a lot of time, but I'm just like posting links at this point. It's already like finished. I finished writing. I just need to put some pictures and a couple of different sources or whatever in the article. So yeah, someone said used to be on my page every day. They're not showing me. You just got to kind of look for me. I am posting, I am streaming. I've been consistent. I don't know what's up with YouTube. I don't, but and it's funny because they did really let me get a bunch of followers and stuff with content that I assumed they'd find offensive, because like I did like stuff about Dylan Mulvaney and other things like that, focusing on trans stuff, and I went viral like in the reels and got like some millions of views on that stuff. And I was struggling to get like monetized for a long time, and then they kind of changed their rules, and then they have to like review your stuff. I'm like, oh gosh, if they're going to review my viral videos, there's no way they're going to let me get monetized, but they did. So but now they just won't show people my stuff. I'm just slowly kind of like losing subscribers here or there. So and sometimes it seems like they are like unsubscribing people. I don't know if they're just unsubscribing people or getting rid of people who they think might not be active or whatever on the list. I don't know. But I'm out here doing my thing. But I do thank you guys for watching and following. You guys can also check out different merch and stuff on the website, different t-shirts and mugs. We got the pumpkin spice season Trump chibi mug. I did draw that little chibi Trump. I do also have that in t-shirt, so you guys can check that out. Also the same with the You Are Not That Special mug. You can give that to somebody today to trigger them, or maybe they'll get a good laugh out of it. I don't know. If you guys also do want to support another way besides like the merchandise and stuff, you guys can go to the website, drop a donation if you can. I'd very much appreciate it. It does cost a stream, run my site, all the good stuff. If you're watching on Facebook, you guys can also send super chats or stickers, and on Facebook, you guys can still send stars. I figured out someone sent some stars the other day, but whatever you guys can do to help, I appreciate it. Just liking and commenting, all that stuff does help too, and when you share stuff. So I thank you. I really, really do. So anyway, hello. I see some folks who don't usually watch live who are there. Hello. If you didn't watch my content from the Charlie Kirk vigil that happened in Shelby the other day, I did post the videos of me singing. I had posted them on TikTok and Facebook by the time I streamed yesterday, but I hadn't done on YouTube, and I did do it afterwards. I know some of you watched those two performances, but there's two different videos. One song I'm singing My Help, and the other I'm singing The Clay. The Clay is an original song that I wrote when I was 12. So if you guys want to go ahead and check that out, go ahead and check that out. Anyway, let's get to some of the tea for the day. So Daily Wire posted an article. Exclusive. Attempted Kavanaugh assassin identifies as transgender woman, legal filings show. Lawyers for the attempted assassin say he now goes by female pronouns as he faces a 30-year prison sentence. Washington, the man who attempted to kill Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh identifies as a transgender woman and was deeply mentally ill and suicidal, according to court documents first obtained by the Daily Wire. By the way, do you guys always find it weird that they were trying to go after Brett Kavanaugh specifically? Like, because Brett, like, you know exactly where Brett was going to stand on stuff. Like, if you wanted to take out someone who's like a solid conservative, like, wouldn't you, I don't know, think it would be Clarence Thomas? And I'm assuming it's just because he was so hotly contested as of recently because of all of the allegations that they were trying to throw at him to destroy his life. With Christine Blasey Ford and there were other allegations. At one point, there was an allegation that he's part of some kind of like gangbang train. They just aired anything on TV basically to slander this man, which was terrible. So I'm wondering if he's just like in the top consciousness of his mind, because I'm like, why else would you pick Brett? I didn't know how Brett was gonna swing and vote with the Roe v. Wade stuff. Like, I could depend on Clarence Thomas. Anyway, the Department of Justice is recommending that the defendant, 29 years old, Nicholas Roske, be sentenced to 30 years in prison for attempting to kill the Supreme Court justice in 2022, according to a Friday filing outlining the case against Rosk. Maybe I'll say Rosk. I'm not sure. I'll say Rosk. Rosk pled guilty to the attempt to kill a United States Supreme Court justice in April 2025, 3 years after authorities arrested him in Kavanaugh's neighborhood carrying a bag full of weapons and burglary tools. A filing from Rosk defense attorneys shows that Rosk now goes by Sophie Rosk and that his legal team will refer to him using female pronouns. A footnote on the filing, obtained exclusively by the Daily Wire, explains that the defense will not use Rosk's legal name out of respect for the would-be assassin. The case is captioned United States versus Nicholas John Rosk, lawyers for Rosk state. The name remains Miss Rosk's legal name, and she has not asked to recaption the case. Out of respect for Miss Rosk, the balance of pleading and counsel's in-court argument will refer to her as Sophie and use female pronouns. No, like, insane that sounds. Like, and for the counsel to go along with it, wouldn't you be like, you know what? Let's not do that. Let's not do that. Like, what do they think to gain by like going along with this with their client? Is it just because they want, at the end of the day, to put him in a female prison? Is that what it is? Is that what it is? A source familiar with the legal proceedings in the case told the Daily Wire that Rosk was using female identities online before the attempted murder and now goes by the female name reflected in the defense filings. Attorney General Pam Bondi told the Daily Wire that the attack is viewed as political violence and referred to Rosk as a disturbed individual. This attempt against the file of a Supreme Court justice was an attack on the entire judicial system that cannot go unpunished, Bondi told the Daily Wire on Friday morning. This Department of Justice condemns political violence, and our prosecutors will ensure that this disturbed individual faces severe consequences for his deranged actions. In the filings obtained by the Daily Wire, Justice Department attorneys argue that the court's sentence must send the unequivocal, clear, and strong message that attempted violence and threats of violence against members of the judiciary, as well as other public and federal officials, cannot and will not be tolerated and will be justly and severely condemned. They specifically state that the court's sentence must be significant enough to not only reflect the harm sought to be inflicted on the judiciary, but also to send a message that the consequences for these acts, no fewer than 30 years to life in prison, are not worth the perceived ideological ends. The revelation, and you really do need to punish people to show them that justice will be done. That's one of the reasons why you do justice. And not just for the people watching, but sometimes people do not know how bad their actions are until they face a consequence. Like if you just do stuff and it's just normal and you just get away with whatever, you become desensitized to your own injustice, to your own evil. So sometimes the person needs that shock of, no, you're getting a consequence for this because this is a bad thing. Sometimes you have to teach people this stuff, unfortunately. So yeah, they need to punish this person, and people who would think about doing something like that, they need to know that they're going down. The person who killed Charlie Kirk, he's been arrested, he was caught. I'm glad his parents were able to take him in. I had a terrible thought. I'm like, man, what if they never find him? Like I was concerned that he would get away with it. But I don't know how much you can actually like get away with stuff. I mean, like I know there's unsolved murders and things like that, but like something on that scale with the FBI like hunting you down and it's not like he was a professional, which some people believed that he was because they didn't understand how, I guess, unimpressive the shot was. People are like, "Oh my gosh, only a sniper professional could hit that." It's not true, but if you don't know, you don't know. And I didn't know, but I didn't say. And I deferred to people who knew. Yeah. Anyway, the revelation of Rosk has been using female name and pronouns is significant given the rise of transgender violence across the United States. A gunman living with his transgender boyfriend is accused of murdering Turning Point USA founder Charlie Kirk last week. Kirk's murder came only a few weeks after a 23-year-old trans-identifying gunman named Robin Westman opened fire on Catholic school children while they are praying in Minneapolis. So we've got these cases that are kind of repeating of these same people. Kirk's accused killer, 22-year-old Tyler Robinson, was living with a 22-year-old trans-identified male named Lance Twiggs. It's just so, his name is Twigs, like twigs and berries. It's, which, if you, is another way to say, man's junk or whatever, it's just, I don't know. Like you can't make this stuff up. I bet you could. It sounds made up, but it's I guess real life. Who was thrown out of his family home for allegedly abusing drugs and alcohol and excess gaming. Robinson and Twiggs were in a romantic relationship, authorities said. The killings have prompted calls for investigations into transgender violence and extremism. Earlier this month, Sebastian Gorka, deputy assistant to President Donald Trump and senior director of counterterrorism, told the Daily Wire that the new draft USA counterterrorism plan addresses transgender violence. The Daily Wire reported September 4th that the Justice Department was considering blocking trans-identifying people from buying firearms as part of a range of options to prevent mentally unstable individuals from committing acts of violence, especially at schools. Those discussions centered on the fact that those who identify as transgender suffer from gender dysphoria, a mental disorder describing the sense of unease that a man and a woman may feel if he or she thinks that their biological sex is mismatched and their so-called gender identity. And on Thursday, the Conservative Oversight Project urged the FBI to designate transgender ideology violent extremism TIVE as a domestic extremism threat category and to use the full toolkit of the FBI to prevent future attacks inspired by this ideology. Though it was reported in 2022 that Rosk portrayed himself as a self-styled trans gamer girl on the internet, more information about the attempted assassin's gender identity has not been made available to the public. Rosk's story had largely vanished from the public scrutiny other than occasional updates on his sentencing and charges. I did not know. Did you guys know? I didn't know that there was any sort of trans ideology or whatever behind that. I didn't know that. So that's fascinating. The Friday DOJ filings show that Rosk meticulously researched, planned, and attempted to assassinate at least one, but had stated target of 3 sitting judges of the United States Supreme Court with the explicit objective of single-handedly altering the constitutional order for ideological ends. Okay, so he probably was going after all the other ones. He conducted internet searches for their homes of the 4 justices, purchased a Glock 17 pistol, ammunition, and rail-mounted tactical light with laser sight, tactical gloves, non-slip grip socks, cable ties, pepper spray, a lockpick set, a screwdriver, and a wrecking ball. Wow. My mental health is too poor for me to fear death, he wrote on Discord on March 18th, 2022 to another user, according to the DOJ filing. But prison sounds worse, to be monitored to the point where you can't even unalive yourself. Well, he said kill yourself. I'm so used to censoring myself on TikTok. So if I did kill someone, I would definitely try to get away with it. In April 2022, he was Googling shooting videos, school shooting videos, mass shootings, and shooters searching how to buy guns online, and which a person's death would have the biggest impact on the world. So yeah, he said that he would, doesn't want to have to be monitored in prison and have to live with being a prisoner. Some people say that the death penalty is too easy for some of these guys, which he's not. They're not seeking that, but they're seeking that with Tyler Robinson. And I don't think so. Going out yourself versus you having to wait until the state does it. I think that's kind of a different mindset mentality on the person. And I think they do fear death, and hell awaits. What can I say? Unless you repent and really get with Jesus, and that would be great, but that's still, and then I guess you could still meet your maker in one way or another. But just other people need to know that you cannot do this kind of stuff. You will be caught. I kind of lost a thought about my concern about him not being caught, but I was also concerned that if he killed himself, that they would, like, what if they don't find his body and we just have this feeling of, did he get away? Do we know what happened to him? So I am glad that his parents, they released the photos to the, I guess, the FBI's credit. And because I felt like they were kind of high-fiving themselves a little too much. I'm like, their parents turned them in, but they did release the photos. The mom was like, oh my gosh, that looks like my son. She talked to her husband and they're like, oh my gosh, that looks like our son. And then they saw the gun and was like, oh gosh, that looks like grandpa's, that looks like his gun, and it had like a specific kind of scope and stuff on it. So they knew who it was. In April 2022, he was Googling shooting videos, school shooting videos, mass shootings, and shooters searching how to buy guns online, and which person's death would have the biggest impact on the world. Court filings show that Rosk described himself as actively suicidal and said he wanted to do something positive before I die by taking out Kavanaugh before the justice could vote to overturn Roe v. Wade. He found Kavanaugh's neighborhood online after he saw an article with a picture of the family's house, including the house member, because the far-left activists had posted the addresses of the justices online in an attempt to intimidate them into preserving Roe. And there's all those people continuously like protesting outside of like Justice Roberts' house, and they didn't do enough. That was so annoying to watch. I'm like, these people are obviously trying to intimidate the justices into not voting the way that they should vote on this. And he was like the squishiest one, like in the middle, wanting some kind of compromise anyway. But people who I know a lot of people are very passionate about the subject of abortion and acting like it would be the end of the world and stuff if it was overturned. And since it's been overturned, there's been such propaganda. Like the left and the activists, they'll find any kind of article where there's some kind of malpractice done, and they'll be like, it's because of pro-life laws. It's like, no, it's not. Maybe these dumb doctors don't know the laws, but they could read them. Or maybe people are, I don't know, doing dumb things on purpose. I don't know, but it malpractice isn't the same as the law made me not able to save someone's life. There's no law that's preventing you to do that, from doing that. But if we could just be honest about what abortion is, what it does, and that it is a terrible thing. And maybe some people think it's a necessary evil, but this person who's infected by this trans ideology and is morally depraved, because you have to be, morally depraved to begin to alter reality in this sort of kind of way, to accept this lie and live this lie. Listen to all these people probably say all this stuff about Roe v. Wade and overturning this stuff. This was a man who's like, oh, I got to kill a Supreme Court justice because that's going to do the most good to stop them from overturning Roe v. Wade. That's crazy. Obviously. In May 2022, Politico published a leaked draft Supreme Court opinion, which they did not catch the person who did that, showing this, which is terrible, by the way, showing that the court was poised to overturn Roe, the landmark 1973 Supreme Court decision establishing a constitutional right to an abortion. That leaked prompted protests outside the homes of the justices, the publication of their addresses online, and Ross' journey from California to Maryland. I was thinking about killing Brett Kavanaugh and then killing myself, he said to the officers who arrived on the scene, according to the January court filings. And then I texted my sister that I loved her. And then she called me and told me not to do it. And then I called 911. I saw the news and it was upsetting, and I was already suicidal, he told detectives later. And he described how he tracked down Kavanaugh's home and planned the assassination. And I don't know, it was like a project, I guess. A project. When I saw the leaked draft, it made me upset, and then it made me want to do it. I don't know, he shared. I was under the delusion that I could make the world a better place by killing him. The DOJ filings show that after the Supreme Court leak, Ross searched terms relating to combat and body armor approximately 28 times. Within a month, he had searched for firearms related terms over 90 times. That included quietest semi-auto rifle, gun calibers, best silencers for Glock 17, and more. He was also searching, do snipers aim for the head or the chest? Does the Secret Service protect Supreme Court justices? Easiest way to opine a locked door, how to break glass quietly, how to make shoes quieter, and how to make handcuffs with zip ties. That is a lot of Googling for different stuff, man. I do sometimes Google weird things that I guess could end up looking incriminating one day. Not this much stuff, but like, I'm an author, so sometimes my search history looks a little bit strange. On Discord, he was asking his online friends, would Associate Justice's last name be removed for the Supreme Court help women long term? And I was thinking of the Roe decision. I feel like those 9 people make a much bigger impact than most people, and thought of Roe v. Wade and gay marriage both being repealed has me furious. He was researching how to kill people between May and June 2022. Ross was looking into the most effective place to stab someone and how to quietly knock someone out. He was searching how far into the neck is the trachea, what is the best length of a knife for stabbing, the most effective way to silently kill someone, and how much more force do you need to stab someone's neck. He also had I don't think this episode's going to get monetized. And he had an interest in fleeing to a foreign country. Ross was searching for countries and don't extradite to the U.S., how to get a passport in California, to Sweden, extradite to the U.S., and more. He was also fully aware of what might happen after he committed an assassination, searching for information about an insanity defense. Yeah, right, bud. You researched way too much for that. What happens if you are suicidal in prison? He searched, and if you are hospitalized after a crime, what happens? Ross flew from California to Duluth International Airport after he found Kavanaugh's home, using media photographs and protests outside the justice's home. Wow, all these protesters who were outside of the home helped this man almost murder him. Thanks, guys. Politico's report acknowledged that it would likely intensify the already feverish debate in the summer of 2022 over abortion, a Supreme Court decision. The publication was named as a finalist for a Pulitzer Prize for the story, though the story did not win the prize. No draft decision in the modern history of the court has been disclosed publicly while the case was still pending, wrote a journalist, Josh Gernstein and Alexander Ward, in their story on the leaked draft. The unprecedented revelation is bound to intensify the debate over what was already the most controversial case on the docket this term. Authorities have failed to track down the leaker of the Supreme Court opinion. In May, FBI Deputy Dan Bongino said the FBI is giving increased scrutiny to the leak of the Supreme Court Dobbs case, among a few other high-profile cases that have not been properly investigated. I received requested briefings on these cases weekly, and we are making progress, Bongino said. If you have any investigative tips on these matters that may assist us, then please contact the FBI. Wow. Thank you. Thank you. You said now this episode is monetized. Thank you for the gift. I appreciate that. There's just a lot of weapons and violence, and I'm like, ooh, in that report. Oh gosh. Yeah, I didn't seem like that story was really in the news a lot. Even when it happened, I didn't think they reported that much of it being in the news. And but it's really crazy. But people are so involved in the political, and he's like, I want to make the world a better place. I want to make the world a better place. People need to look within about how they can make themselves better, how they can make themselves happy. Charlie Kirk talked about, like, don't seek happiness, like seek purpose. You have to seek a purpose. But you have people like Jordan Peterson who say, hey, you need to go make your bed. Like, you need to get your life in order. People who decide to do all these grand things, like, okay, I want to be remembered this way. I want to do this. I want to go out and do this. Seek ways to make your life better. And when you make your life better, you make your family better, you can make your community better, and it will extend from there. But having these psycho delusions about, oh, okay, well, I'm gonna kill Brett Kavanaugh. It was a leaked opinion. They already like wrote their stuff, like and what that happened in 2022. So what, he would have been replaced by maybe someone more conservative. And I don't know, like, I know people had a concern of whether or not he would just kind of go more left wing or whatever. If all these people were trying to kill me and do all this protesting and all this stuff, and the awful way how they treated him when they were going through his hearing, it would just kind of solidify, like, okay, I'm going to write these opinions and I'm going to really not give a crap what anybody says and stick to my guns and my convictions and just really, really be on the right. Like, because I was concerned, about whether some of his opinions would be or whatever, but they just do the craziest stuff. But you have all these women who are like gnashing their teeth and so upset because Roe v. Wade got overturned. Here's the reality about Roe v. Wade, and we've talked about this before. Roe v. Wade, it's had other decisions that have been paired with that, obviously, since that time. But most Americans don't agree with Roe v. Wade, actually. What ended up overturning Roe v. Wade was a ban at 15 weeks. Most people don't believe that you should have abortions past 15 weeks. And if you do have an abortion past 15 weeks, you'll hear people say, oh, well, people usually do it early, as if that makes it okay. But they're like, people do it earlier than that. They don't do it later. And if they do it later, it's only because of severe medical issues. People don't still have abortions after 15 weeks. They don't. Which isn't true. It's true that most of them occur earlier than like 15 weeks. That's true. Most of them are done in the first trimester. But it's not true that people like only do abortions later than 15 weeks or even 24 weeks just because of medical issues, or like life of the mother issues. Some of them might get a test and see that their child has Down syndrome, and then they might decide that they don't want it. They might see that there's some kind of other medical issue and they don't want it. Sometimes women don't find out that they're pregnant until really, really late and they decide to have an abortion. Sometimes their situation changes. Maybe their relationship status changes. Maybe they get a job opportunity that they didn't have before, or maybe more money comes in, so now they can afford that abortion. But if you go look at different clinics, they have tried to correct this misinformation because they want their customers to come in and not feel bad about deciding to get an abortion at week 30, if that's what they really want. There are late term clinics that do not just do like oh, my baby's missing half their brain or something like that. In Colorado, Warren Hearn, he was a pretty like prolific abortion doctor. He specialized in third trimester abortions, and on their website you could read what the third trimester abortion does. Some people will try to convince you, and this is so chronically online stupidity rabbit hole. They'll try to convince you that nobody does third trimester abortions, and if it's a third trimester abortion, because they believe an abortion is just like ending a pregnancy, like, and that could mean while they're alive. So I guess everyone has been aborted because you've been birthed or whatever. If you've had a C-section or whatever, you born that way, then you've been aborted. It's really crazy, but that's what the route that they try to go. And some people will I've seen people argue and like say, no one kills a baby that late. If they have a third term abortion, that's a C-section, or they're inducing the birth or whatever. No, they will induce fetal demise. They will inject a poison into the child, so they'll have like a heart attack or whatever, and they'll die. And it takes a minute to get the body ready to be able to deliver the dead baby. But that's what they do in third trimester abortions. And all the abortions are like brutal. Like the pill, it suffocates and starves the baby, and then you take another pill to expel their body. Then there's the other the suction abortion, when they suck the baby up through a little teeny tiny tube. And then there's the one where they prepare your cervix, and then they like just kind of rip out the baby with like the forceps, the sulfur, clamps or whatever. And they suck out the rest, and they got to crush the skull. I had a friend who had an abortion around like 20 weeks, something like that. And she was just like indecisive. She didn't know what she wanted to do. She didn't know how to tell her mom. And she was in love with somebody who didn't really love her. The story goes, she was in high school. And she eventually told her mom, who was getting near prom, and she was starting a show. She just told her mom, and her mom was upset. And she said, the decision's up to you. And by the way, you're probably like, how is she going to have an abortion without her mom knowing? Because some states, minors, you need to have some kind of consent from the parent. There are ways to do that, or to get around parental consent. And there were girls in her school telling her how to do that. It's just like a culture of dysfunction where, you get knocked up. Oh, you can go have an abortion. Like, that's how a lot of these girls are conditioned. It's not a big deal. Go ahead, go get one. So, she had it, and it was a brutal 2-day procedure. The first day, like, they didn't give her enough anesthesia, so when they were like preparing her cervix, like, she felt them tugging on it, and she like collapsed, and like she was already like in the table or whatever, but she passed out from the pain, and how she like describes waking up and being like disoriented and in so much pain. It's like I imagine like a horror movie in my mind. And she just like cried in her mom's arms and stuff. And the next day they paid for more anesthesia to make sure that she would be knocked out as they finished killing her baby. And she now understands that she killed her child. And but for the longest time, if you mentioned what happened, or if you even mentioned pregnancy or abortion, anything like that, it was like she had PTSD, and her body would like react to it and would just kind of start doing flips. Like, she could feel remnants of that trauma and that pain that she went through. Now she doesn't have that anymore. But when we first having conversations about it, she was like, would re-experience that pain. People don't understand how brutal of a process that is. But most people don't believe that you should have abortions past 15 weeks. They don't. What Roe v. Wade does, or it did, is it prevented the state from protecting children. And the first trimester, it was all totally up to the woman. And the second trimester, you could make some regulations, but the regulations had to be in the interest of the mother, not really the fetus. And so in the third trimester, that's when you could do a ban if you wanted to, but but that would still be like up to the states, and that for them to decide. You could still have abortions with no restrictions while Roe v. Wade was in place, and people did that all the time. So a lot of people don't understand what it did. truly, if people like just looked at the law, looked at the ruling, what it prohibited and stuff, and what got it overturned, most Americans should be like, oh, well, okay, well, I actually don't think that women should be able to have abortions, elective abortions at like 16 weeks. So yeah, I guess, you know, or 15 weeks or 14 weeks or whatever. Just maybe they just feel like first trimester, you know. Okay, then Roe v. Wade need to be overturned because it was preventing states from protecting children. But people were so hysterical when it was overturned. So he thought he was going to do some good for the world and kill Brett Kavanaugh. Really wild. Really wild. Someone said, okay, I was told once by a woman who was pro-choice that women don't choose an abortion. I didn't know how to respond. Um, then then why, if they don't choose abortion, then why do they get them? Like, who books the appointment? I understand sometimes a pimp does it or a parent does it and or a boyfriend does it and they kind of bully you into getting it or coerce you into it, sometimes pay you to do it. But women book the appointments. They're the ones who take the pills and are largely the abortionists because the pills are the number one way that people abort now. So it's just rhetoric. And sometimes you just gotta, I don't know. I find the best thing to kind of do with people as they use their hyper hysterical language is to really kind of break it down as simply as possible. Like, oh, you're forcing women to do. I'm like, what do you mean by force? Like, can you explain like precisely what you mean? Like, how exactly are they forcing it? Can you like walk me through that step by step? Because what they actually mean is you won't allow them to kill their child. So it just kind of seems like they're pro force themselves and we're trying to prevent an act of force, but they're trying to make it seem like you're the one initiating force to make you seem like you're the tyrant and you're the bad guy. So just, you got to break this stuff down and make people explain what they mean. Like, tell me what you mean by that. So you can unwind some of this craziness that's in their heads. Like sometimes it's just a bunch of cats fighting and maybe there's nothing else to find out. But sometimes you can just ask clarifying questions, be patient, and see if you can get to some kind of a point where these people can have some kind of revelation. It's very interesting. I've talked about this before, but there was something in the news not too long ago, and people were bringing up abortion or whatever, and how Republicans like, oh, they care about abortion, but they don't care about these kids killed by these shootings and things like that. And so since they brought up abortion, I started debating people about abortion. And someone brought up that most abortions are done early, so they don't have consciousness, which I don't care. I just tell people I don't care that like that's what you value or whatever, but it doesn't make sense to me. So I don't like it's all bad to me. So you have to like justify that. And so I asked somebody, I'm like, okay, if you care about consciousness, I don't understand really why you think that killing in general is bad. Like on a principled level, I suppose. Like I can understand like, oh, someone kills someone, their family is sad. They can't fulfill their dreams. Like I understand that. But if you don't believe that life is inherently valuable and therefore murder is wrong, and that life itself is inherently valuable, so that's why it's a good thing that we're living through life and we're experiencing it, even though sometimes we suffer, right? If you don't like adhere to at least those two things, I don't understand why you probably think that someone being murdered is a bad thing. So let me further explain. So I asked them, I'm like, okay, what if someone was killed in their sleep, or they're killed quick and they weren't aware, there was no pain, they didn't know it was going to happen. Maybe they had all these hopes and dreams or whatever, but they're killed, they're dead. and they don't have any family and they don't have any friends. I'm like, what is the harm? If the harm isn't the fact that you deprive them of their future conscious experience, which abortion does, it's robbing them of their future conscious experience. What does it matter? You can say, well, they had hopes and dreams. That doesn't matter to them anymore. They're dead. They don't care about how they want to go to Cedar Point, or maybe they want to be the president, or maybe they wanted to get married, or whatever. It doesn't matter to them. They're dead. Their hopes, their dreams, their thoughts, it doesn't matter. So how are they harmed? How are they harmed? If you only value consciousness and consciousness experience, how are they harmed? Especially if there's no family and friends who would miss them or mourn them. I'm like, why is it wrong to kill that person? And they respond with, I guess it would depend on why they're alone. if any harm was done. So they couldn't objectively say it's wrong to murder someone who doesn't have like familial sort of connections of people who would mourn them. Isn't that wild? So I guess I have to have that conversation with more pro-choicers, because they're like, I saw a clip of Ben Shapiro on the not whatever podcast. It was a Jubilee. And he's like, it's wrong to kill people. Life starts at conception. And they're like, okay, well, why does that matter to you? And he's like, because that's when life begins. And they're like, okay, well, I value sentience. And he's like, okay, why do you value sentience? And she's like, it's because that's what I value. So she didn't know quite how to answer that question either. So she ended up like getting booted off pretty fast. But a lot of people go that route, like, I value sentience. It's like, okay, but why do you value sentience? I think you value sentience because you understand, like, to your core, that life is worth experiencing. It's good to experience life. So there's that. And I would say that life is inherently valuable. And if you rob someone of their future conscious experience, they'll think that that's bad, but they'll only say you matter. You have to at least have some kind of past conscious experience. But that doesn't make sense to me either. Like, if someone, let's say there's two women, let's do a one of those trolley problems. Okay, there's two women. One of them has a baby that just experienced consciousness. They're at 20 weeks. They just had a flash of that or whatever in their mind. They haven't experienced much, but they just had it. But the baby, there's something wrong. It's going to be a stillborn, and they're going to pass away in the womb. So they'll never really make it out of the womb alive. And then you have a baby who's at 19 weeks, and they haven't experienced any sort of sentience yet. But you know that they will go on and live a long, happy life. Okay, one of these children are going to, you got to press a button, and one of them are going to live and one of them going to die. Now, you know one is going to die, but they have had some kind of past sentience, some kind of or past consciousness. So according to you and your logic, they're the only ones who matter. This one who hasn't ever experienced consciousness, they don't matter. So is that like second or two or consciousness forever long, if they'll be alive, more valuable than the person who you know is going to live a long, healthy life? No, they're both valuable and shouldn't be killed, but it's a trolley problem. It's, meant to test your logic. Would they really say, like, okay, no, we're going to protect the one who we know is never going to make it out the womb instead of the one that we know is going to live for like 90 years? That doesn't seem like that makes sense to me. So I don't know. There's ways you could push their logic or whatever. Trent Horn debated Destiny about this topic of abortion, and Trent Horn really, and it was like a 3-hour long debate on the Whatever podcast. Trent Horn is so good. He's such a good pro-life debater. But in Destiny's opinion was, it doesn't matter how many times you have an abortion unless they're conscious, and then you shouldn't do it. And Trent was able to really push him on his position. So if you have time one day, maybe you're driving a while, I recommend you check it out, especially to see how absurd Destiny's position was and what kind of conclusions it would drive you toward. Because Destiny had to die on the hill of, okay, what if we took a baby and we're growing it and we do something that they never develop consciousness and you use it as like a sex doll? Is there something wrong with that? And Destiny said no. And Trent Horn's just like, okay, I'm going to let the audience be the judge of that. So, and I've seen people on TikTok take like similar stances as that and die on that hill, who also, by the way, mocked Charlie Kirk for being murdered. And a friend of mine who's pro-life like screenshot some of the pro-choicers reactions to Charlie Kirk's death, and she's like, this is what happens when you have objective morality. This is what happens. And I think that's true. Someone said Destiny is a complete psychopath. Destiny is pretty much a complete psychopath. He pretty much is. I don't know. I see people on YouTube commenting. I wonder if I wonder if Facebook is not liking the sort of language that we're saying here today. It is tough. We've said some things that censors obviously would not like today. Anyway, let's very quickly talk about this Jimmy Kimmel story. And how long is this article? It's not terribly long. Okay, how Jimmy Kimmel's suspension went down, sponsor panic, a defiant host, and a painful call. Disney's Bob Iger and Dana Walden wanted to know how Kimmel was going to address the situation. Sources say he planned to defend what he said rather than kowtowing to the outrage. Disney thought that would fan the flames. Obviously. Now, Disney does not need any more crap. They don't need any more crap. They already had lost battles to Ron DeSantis. They had people who were boycotting their crap because of the Don't Say Gay bill, which wasn't a Don't Say Gay bill, but they were like, oh, we're gonna fund stuff to get this stuff overturned. I'm like, oh, so you want to use the dollars of parents to undermine parents so teachers can secretly teach their kids LGBT crap? Well, fine. I'm not supporting Disney, and then they've had a string of losses. Disney Plus hasn't been doing, great. They've had some movies that have done okay, done well, like as, controversial as Lilo and Stitch was, the live action one, it made money, but they've had some bombs, right? So Disney does not need any sort of drama from Jimmy Kimmel or people just going on another mass boycott, which is interesting because people are trying to boycott Disney now and cancel their Disney Plus over this. And I'm like, oh, y'all cancel it over this, but y'all wouldn't do it to protect the kids? Screw you. Anyway, on Wednesday, Disney caved to pressure from various partners and benched Jimmy Kimmel live. Ultimately, the decision was Bob Iger's and Dana Walden's, but there was more leading up to it than previously reported. On Monday's episode of his long-running ABC late night talk show, Jimmy Kimmel mocked MAGA Republicans for scrambling to distance their own ideologies from those Charlie Kirk's alleged murderer, Tyler Robinson. In the days following Kirk's murder, the left and the right were quick to point fingers at each other over Robinson's perceived political leanings, and it was always obvious that the man was a leftist. The left tried really hard to fight that. Obama, when he did a statement like, "Oh, we don't know the motivations of the killer," he said Charlie Kirk was hateful. Okay, that's and they had like left wing stuff on the bullets. We got a good clue. Anyway, we hit some new lows over the weekend with MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of their own and doing everything they can to score political points from it, Kimmel said during the monologue. That was not a joke. Don't call it a joke, bro. The joke kicked off a social media bleep storm, a source with information tells a Hollywood Reporter. It died down temporarily, but almost immediately after the FCC chair Brendan Carr's appearance on Benny Johnson's podcast, the storm of bleep became a bigger swirl. Within hours, multiple ABC stations owners held calls with senior Disney leadership expressing their concern with the comments, a second source tells The Hollywood Reporter. Inside of ABC, multiple conversations with Kimmel were had at the executive level, the first person says, though the talks had not yet reached Bob Iger or TV head Dana Walden. The execs wanted to know how was Kimmel going to address the situation on Wednesday night's show. The answer was not satisfactory to management, sources say. Meanwhile, the advertiser calls began to roll in, and then the big affiliate conglomerates Nexstar and Sinclair threatened to preempt the show. The second source says that the blowback was snowballing enough that it had ABC not acted, Kimmel's show would have been dark in a large swath of the country, even beyond the Sinclair and Nexstar territories, including in the Washington, D.C. metro area. The situation became a safety issue as Disney employees saw their emails doxed, per the first source. Some even received death threats. That's not okay, guys. Disney wanted Kimmel to address the situation in a way that would take down the temperature, but what he had planned was going to fan the flames with the MAGA fan base, the source says. A source at Jimmy Kimmel's Live counters to The Hollywood Reporter that Kimmel's planned on-air address was not making it worse, but that he simply wasn't kowtowing to the outrage. Kimmel was defending what he said as being grossly mischaracterized by a certain group of people, the show source says. Oh, so you guys are just too stupid to understand what I said. We heard what you said, Jimmy. We heard what you said. The Hollywood Reporter on Wednesday, the Hollywood Reporter reported on Wednesday that Kimmel did not plan to apologize for his comments, but did plan to address the situation on air. Talks between Kimmel and Disney ABC hit enough of a stalemate that executives there decided Wednesday's episode of Jimmy Kimmel Live had run out of time to be salvaged. The show's live to tape time was not far off. The studio audience was lined up outside but had not yet been brought in. Jimmy Kimmel Live tapes at 4 p.m. By this point, 66 of the roughly 200 affiliate stations had said they would not carry the episode. That's when ABC announced it was suspending the program, a Bob Iger and Dana Walden joint decision. That was the last resort, the first person says. Walden delivered the news to Kimmel, but did not ask him to apologize, says the source who described Wednesday as a very heavy, very hard day inside the walls of Disney and ABC. Disney and Kimmel declined to comment on the situation. Disney is still trying to find a path back to Jimmy Kimmel Live. According to the source, at the top executives are hopeful, but note that the future is up to Kimmel's willingness to participate in the cooling off process. Of course, the future of Jimmy Kimmel Live is also at least sort of up to the ABC affiliates. The source could not say how many affiliates would have to be on board for ABC to continue business with Jimmy Kimmel Live. So that's the story. Anyway, that's what it is. The advertisers and people started flipping out. So this happened Monday night. So the Tuesday, they had time to rectify the situation and get everything together. But that was a crazy thing that he said, and it wasn't a joke. It was a lie. Now, the FCC, I'm not going to ignore that the FCC said stuff. The Brendan Carr went on Benny Johnson's show to talk about it, and everybody knows Trump's feelings and whatnot. But there's other stuff going on. There's been public outrage to think that you had all weekend to come up with these jokes and these monologues, and that's what you decided to say, knowing the temperature of the country, knowing that people were losing their jobs over this stuff, and knowing that the ideology likely pointed to this person being on the left, but you still decided to not only try to paint him as MAGA, but to mock MAGA for trying to tell the truth about what this kid was. I'm not losing sleep over Jimmy Kimmel being fired. I'm I don't know if they'll bring it back or whatever. But he's been a not very good person for a long time, and how he uses platform. I would love if people would just kind of tell jokes, and it's fine if you tell jokes about the president of the United States and his cabinet and stuff. Though I obviously think they're tougher on Trump than they were on Biden and other people. So I don't think they're exactly fair, but jokes don't have to be fair. They don't. Entertainment doesn't have to be fair. You can have your bias or whatever, you know. But with jokes, with comedy, you would think everybody would get equal hands. But sometimes they'll just say stuff and it's not even a joke. Like the beginning of that monologue was a lie. It wasn't a joke. There wasn't a punchline there. He used it to build up to another way to mock Trump. But the first part was absolutely a lie. The FCC does regulate broadcast TV. Sometimes they're like, well, what about Fox News and the stuff that they say? And that's cable. That's not broadcast. You want the broadcaster license, you are regulated by the FCC. That's how it is. If Democrats want to come together and get rid of the FCC or rein them in, they can, but I don't think they want to do that because they do like political power. They just hate when they don't have it. Okay? They just hate when they don't have it. But advertisers were not okay with what happened. And these affiliates were not okay with what happened. So Jimmy Kimmel doesn't seem like the kind of person who wants to reflect and make amends. So I don't know what they're going to do. I don't care. But I don't think it's fair to just be like, oh, this is because of Trump. This is because of the government. They made their own bed. Disney has fired people for less. Literally for less. Well, I know we talked about Roseanne the other day. I did mention Chris Harrison, the host of The Bachelor, but that situation was far worse. That situation was far worse as far as them firing him. He didn't deserve to be fired from The Bachelor, and the Bachelor Nation is so huge, and to still fire him over that for saying that they should extend some grace toward a girl because she went to an antebellum party. Do you know how many people like Gone with the Wind and obsessed with that fashion in that time? That's a heck of a movie. I watched it for the first time, I think maybe it was earlier this year. It's a heck of a film. Scarlett's a heck of a character, just wild. Like how delusional, and she was, and always chased it after the wrong kind of man, and just, who did. If you haven't seen it, it's, you guys, you have to at least see it one time in your life. They had great lines. They're just iconic. So people going to an antebellum party, some of those houses look cool and stuff, but the people were just convinced that this girl was racist and attacked her. And he's like, let's just have some grace. And Rachel Lindsay didn't like that, and they went after him. So I think that was a trash thing that they did. And if they could get rid of him, they could certainly get rid of Jimmy Kimmel, especially because he was like 1.77 million. That's not a lot of people watching. Roseanne had like 20 million people watching, and they still got rid of her. Anyway, that's the show for today. Hope you guys enjoyed. Please go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on the website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation on the website because it does cost a stream, run my site, all the good stuff you guys can support. I very much appreciate you guys. You guys can also check out some of my books that I've written, like Of Course God Is Blatantly Against Abortion. That's available. And I have like nonfiction books that is nonfiction. Sorry. I have fiction books, stuff for younger readers, older readers. But if you go to blacktnews.com on the merchandise page, there's a banner that'll take you to my book website. But my book website is Ninja Dust Publishing, but there is a link in the description that'll take you to a page on Amazon with like all my books and stuff on there. So you guys can check that out. Thank you guys so much. I'll try to post that article before I get going to church, but I don't know if I'll have time. I'm going to really try to push it out. I'm going to do that like right now. And I will see you guys on Monday. Stay safe out there.